I thought my husband was cheating on me with my half-sister. But then I found photos of my brake lines on his secret phone and realized they weren't just trying to replace me. They were waiting for me to disappear. By the end of this story, you're going to understand why some people should never be trusted with love or money. I found out my husband was sleeping with my half-sister because she accidentally sent me a selfie from my own bathroom. That's not even the worst part. The worst part was what I noticed in the background. My dead grandmother's jewelry box was open on the counter behind her. The same jewelry box Nathan told me he couldn't find 3 weeks earlier. At first, Lily unsent the photo immediately. Then she texted, "OMG, wrong person, LOL." Wrong person. I remember sitting in my car outside my daughter's school, staring at the screen, while my entire body went numb. Because deep down, I already knew. Women always know before they admit it to themselves. The late nights, the weird tension, the way Nathan suddenly started locking his phone, the way Lily started wearing expensive things she couldn't afford. But I kept talking myself out of it because my husband spent years convincing me I was paranoid. You overthink everything, Claire. You're too emotional. You always create problems out of nothing. After hearing that enough, your brain starts distrusting itself. So even after seeing the selfie, I still tried to rationalize it. Maybe Lily stopped by unexpectedly. Maybe Nathan was helping her. Maybe... Then my phone rang.
Nathan. I answered immediately. "Why is Lily in our house?" I asked. Silence. Not confusion, not shock, just silence. Then he sighed like I was exhausting him already. "She forgot her charger here earlier." My stomach twisted. "In our bathroom?" Another sigh. "Claire, seriously?" That tone. That calm, disappointed tone manipulative people use when they want you to feel irrational. You need to stop jumping to conclusions. And somehow, I almost apologized. That's the embarrassing part. I almost apologized to the man cheating on me because he sounded annoyed enough. Then he added, "You've been acting unstable lately." Unstable. That word would end up changing my entire life. Because once he said it, dozens of moments suddenly replayed in my head all at once.
The missing items, the hidden bills, the way he kept telling me I forgot conversations we definitely had. Once I spent 2 hours looking for my passport before finding it hidden inside the garage. Nathan laughed and said, "You seriously need help organizing your life." Another time he claimed I forgot to pay our electricity bill. I cried from stress. 3 days later, I found the paid confirmation email deleted from my inbox. Deleted. By someone else. By him. Gaslighting doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly. Like someone replacing tiny pieces of your reality until you stop trusting yourself completely. By the time I picked Emma up from school that day, I felt physically sick. My daughter climbed into the back seat smiling. "Daddy said Aunt Lily might stay for dinner tonight." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Did he?" Emma nodded happily. "Daddy says you and Aunt Lily need to stop fighting because family matters most." Family. I almost laughed. Instead, I drove home in silence while my chest felt tighter every minute. When I walked inside the house, Lily was already there, barefoot, drinking wine in my kitchen, wearing one of my sweaters. Nathan looked completely comfortable beside her. And suddenly something inside me snapped. Not loudly, quietly, dangerously quietly. I looked directly at Lily and asked, "Did you sleep with my husband?" Nathan immediately stood up. "Claire," but Lily smirked, actually smirked. Then she took another sip of wine and said, "You finally noticed?" I swear my ears started ringing. Nathan turned pale instantly. "Lily, stop." But she kept going. "You spent years acting smarter than everyone, Claire. This is honestly embarrassing. I stared at Nathan, waiting for him to deny it. He didn't. That hurt more than the affair itself, because for one tiny second, I still hoped. Then Emma walked into the kitchen, and Lily smiled sweetly like nothing happened. That's when I realized how evil she actually was. Not guilty, not nervous, comfortable. Nathan rushed Emma upstairs while I stood frozen in the kitchen, trying not to collapse. The second Emma disappeared, I whispered, "How long?" Nathan rubbed his face. "It just happened." Lily burst out laughing. "It's been almost 2 years." 2 years. 2 entire years. Inside my house. Around my daughter. At family dinners. On holidays. Suddenly, every memory felt contaminated. I looked at Nathan. "You let her humiliate me for 2 years?" His expression changed instantly, from guilty to irritated. That's the scary thing about manipulators. Once they realize the mask dropped, they stop pretending. "You haven't exactly been easy to live with," he muttered. I physically recoiled. "What?" "You're always emotional, paranoid, overwhelmed." "Oh my God," I whispered. Because suddenly I understood. He wasn't going to apologize. He was going to blame me. Lily crossed her arms casually against the counter. "You push people away, Claire." I looked at her slowly. "My father married your mother out of pity." That smile disappeared immediately. Good. I wanted it gone. Nathan stepped between us. "Stop acting crazy." Crazy. There it was again. Crazy. Emotional. Unstable. Always the same words. Then Nathan said something that made my blood run cold. "If you keep spiraling like this, I may need to rethink what's healthiest for Emma." I froze. "So this is about custody?" Nathan didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. My daughter wasn't even upstairs for 5 minutes before he weaponized her against me. That was the exact moment I stopped crying. Because heartbreak is one thing, but threatening my child? That wakes something violent inside a mother. I walked upstairs calmly, too calmly, locked myself in the bathroom, and finally allowed myself to think clearly. Then I remembered something terrifying. 3 weeks earlier, Nathan pushed hard for me to sign new life insurance paperwork. $20 million. At the time, he called it responsible planning. Now my hands started shaking. I opened our shared banking app immediately, and that's when I found the transfers. Large amounts, thousands of dollars moving into hidden accounts I didn't recognize. Then another charge caught my eye. A hotel reservation from 2 nights earlier. 1 room, 2 guests. My stomach turned instantly. But the real horror came 30 seconds later. I opened the emergency contacts file connected to Emma's school records. Nathan had changed it recently. Primary emergency guardian, Lily Harper. Not me. Lily, my half-sister. My vision blurred. This wasn't an affair anymore. This was replacement. They weren't sneaking around. They were building a life around removing me from it.
Then I heard footsteps outside the bathroom. Nathan. "Claire," he said softly through the door, that fake gentle voice again. "We need to discuss this calmly." I stayed silent. Then he added, "You're scaring me right now." Scaring him? I almost laughed out loud. He cheats on me with my sister for 2 years and suddenly he's the victim because I closed a bathroom door. Then he quietly said, "You know how emotional episodes affect custody cases." Every hair on my body stood up, because that wasn't concern. That was a threat. And suddenly, everything clicked. The gaslighting, the manipulation, the constant comments about my mental health. He'd been building a narrative against me for years, making me look unstable slowly, on purpose.
My hand shook while I opened the drawer beneath the sink, looking for anxiety medication. Instead, I found a second phone. Hidden. Burner phone. My stomach dropped instantly. I opened it. No password. And the first thing I saw was a text from Lily sent 20 minutes earlier. She knows. You need to handle her before she ruins everything. Then Nathan replied, Relax. Once the trust transfer is next month, she won't matter anymore. I stopped breathing. Trust transfer. My grandmother's inheritance activated on my 35th birthday. Next month. Oh my God. Oh my God. He didn't marry me because he loved me. He married me because he knew what I would eventually inherit. Then I opened the photo gallery and found pictures of my brake lines. My damaged brake lines. Close-up photos. Time-stamped 2 days before my brakes mysteriously failed last month with Emma in the car. I dropped the phone so hard it cracked against the tile floor. Outside the bathroom door, Nathan knocked softly again. Claire? I stared at the broken screen while my entire body turned cold. Because suddenly I realized something horrifying. My husband and my half-sister weren't just trying to replace me. They were waiting for me to disappear. I don't remember unlocking the bathroom door. I just remember staring at Nathan differently for the first time in my life. Not like a husband. Like a threat. He stood there pretending to look concerned while I held the burner phone behind my back. Claire, talk to me, he said softly. Softly. Like he didn't just text my half-sister about handling me.
I realized something terrifying in that moment. Nathan never panicked. Not when caught cheating, not when I confronted him, not even now. People who still stay calm while lying usually practiced long before you caught them. I'm tired, I whispered. He studied my face carefully, trying to figure out how much I knew. Then his eyes moved toward the cracked phone on the bathroom floor. For 1 second, his expression changed. Tiny, fast, but I saw it. Fear. Nathan quickly recovered. What phone is that? I shrugged weakly like I was confused. I found it in the drawer. Silence. Then he smiled. Actually smiled. That's probably an old work phone. Liar. Such an easy liar, too. Then Emma ran downstairs yelling about cartoons, and suddenly Nathan transformed back into perfect dad mode instantly. That switch made me sick. 1 second manipulative psychopath, next second loving father. I watched him hug Emma while my stomach twisted harder every second. Because my daughter adored him, and now I didn't know what he was capable of. That night I barely slept. Nathan kept touching me while we lay in bed. Little things. Hand on my waist, kissing my shoulder, whispering, I love you. I think he was checking whether I still reacted normally. Meanwhile, I stared into the darkness, wondering if the man beside me sabotaged my brakes. At 3 a.m., he finally fell asleep. That's when I moved. Slowly, carefully. I took the burner phone downstairs and emailed everything to myself. Texts, photos, bank transfers. Then I found a voice recording. I almost didn't play it. I wish I hadn't.
Lily's voice came first, laughing. Do you think she suspects anything? Nathan laughed quietly, too. No, Claire's too emotionally dependent to leave. Emotionally dependent. My chest tightened instantly. Then Lily asked, What happens after the inheritance transfer? Long pause. Then Nathan said something that still gives me chills. She becomes unnecessary. At what moment do you think Nathan stopped loving her? Or do you think he never loved her at all? Unnecessary. I physically stopped breathing. Not heartbroken, not shocked. Cold, completely cold. Because there's cheating, and then there's hearing your husband discuss you like expired furniture. Then the recording got worse. Lily asked, "What about Emma?" Nathan sighed. "She'll adjust." Adjust, like I was already dead.
I covered my mouth, trying not to make noise. Then another memory suddenly hit me. 2 months earlier, Nathan insisted on increasing my life insurance policy. $20 million. At the time, he said, "If something ever happened to you, Emma deserves security." Security? Jesus Christ. I started shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone again. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. Nathan waking up. I emailed the files quickly and shoved the phone back where I found it before running upstairs. When I got back into bed, Nathan looked at me strangely. "Where were you?" "Bathroom." One word. Simple. He kept staring. Too long. Then finally nodded. That was the moment I understood something else. Nathan was starting to suspect me too. The next morning he acted perfect. Made pancakes,
Packed Emma's lunch, kissed my forehead. If someone filmed us, we would have looked like a happy suburban family. That's what scared me most, how normal evil can look. While Emma brushed her teeth upstairs, Nathan casually said, "I scheduled an appointment for you tomorrow." I froze. "What?" "With Dr. Feldman." I stared at him. Psychiatrist. Dr. Feldman was a psychiatrist Nathan mentioned months earlier after one of our arguments. My stomach dropped instantly. I don't need a psychiatrist. Nathan gave me that disappointed little smile again. "Claire, your moods lately." "My moods?" "You've been paranoid, emotional, forgetful." Forgetful. The word hit differently now, because suddenly I realized those missing items weren't random. He moved them intentionally. The bills,
my passport, my medication, everything. He was manufacturing instability, and he'd probably been doing it for years. I whispered, "You've been gaslighting me." Nathan actually laughed. Laughed. "You hear yourself right now?" That calm tone again. That calm, superior tone designed to make me sound insane automatically. Then he leaned closer and lowered his voice. "I'm trying to help you before this gets embarrassing publicly." Publicly. There it was again. Not concern. Image management. Then Emma walked back downstairs and Nathan instantly smiled at her like nothing happened. Watching that switch happen in real time made my skin crawl. After he left for work, I called the only person Nathan never wanted me talking to, my grandmother's attorney, Margaret Whitmore. Margaret answered immediately. "Claire?" The second I heard her voice, I started crying. Not dramatic crying, exhausted crying, like my nervous system finally collapsed. I told her everything. The affair, the hidden phone, the inheritance comments, the break photos. There was a long silence after I finished. Then Margaret asked one question. "Are you alone?" My stomach tightened. "Yes." "Good. Listen carefully to me, Claire." Her voice turned ice cold. "Do not confront your husband again." That scared me more than anything else so far. "Why?" Another pause, then, "Because I think you may be in danger." Actually hearing another person say it out loud made the whole thing real, not marital drama. Danger. Margaret arranged for me to meet her that afternoon downtown. I almost canceled 3 times because part of me still felt crazy. That's the horrifying thing about long-term manipulation. Even with evidence, you still doubt yourself. When I arrived at her office, Margaret already had printed copies of everything I emailed. She looked furious. Not shocked. Furious. "Claire," she said carefully, "your husband has been accessing trust-related documents he should never have seen." My pulse quickened. What does that mean? It means he's been planning around your inheritance. Then she slid another paper toward me. A life insurance policy. $20 million. Primary beneficiary, Nathan Cole. Secondary beneficiary, Lily Harper. I felt sick instantly. Margaret watched my face carefully. "Did you know about this?" "No." The word barely came out. Then she handed me one final document. Vehicle inspection report. Official. Confirmed brake line tampering. Intentional damage. I stopped breathing. Because until then, part of me still hoped there was another explanation. There wasn't. Someone intentionally damaged my car. The same car Emma rode in. My hands went numb. Margaret leaned forward slowly. "Claire, has your husband ever tried to isolate you from people?" "Yes." Oh my God. Everything suddenly connected all at once. Nathan discouraging me from seeing old friends, convincing me my mother thought I was unstable, monitoring my spending, controlling conversations, making me doubt my memory. Every single thing had purpose. This wasn't random abuse. It was strategy.
Then Margaret said the sentence that changed everything. "Your grandmother suspected this might happen someday." I stared at her. "What?" Margaret opened a locked folder from her desk. Inside were letters, documents, legal instructions, my grandmother's handwriting. One note sat on top. "If Claire ever begins doubting her own reality around her spouse, investigate immediately." My entire body went cold, because suddenly I realized something terrifying. My grandmother saw this coming before she died. I stared at my grandmother's handwriting so long, the words stopped looking real. "If Claire ever begins doubting her own reality around her spouse, investigate immediately." My throat tightened. She knew? Margaret nodded slowly. "Not specifically about Nathan,
But your grandmother understood exactly what wealthy women attract. Predators. People who perform love long enough to access money, power, control. Suddenly, I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. 3 months before our wedding, my grandmother asked Nathan one strange question during dinner. "If Claire lost every dollar tomorrow, would you still marry her?" At the time, Nathan laughed and squeezed my hand. "Of course." My grandmother didn't smile back. Now I understood why. Margaret slid another document toward me. Private investigator reports. My stomach dropped immediately. Nathan was investigated before the wedding? Yes. Apparently, my grandmother secretly screened every serious partner connected to the family. Normal rich people behavior, apparently. The report showed Nathan had gambling debts even back then. Smaller, hidden better, but still there. "He married you 6 weeks after learning about the trust structure," Margaret said quietly. I felt physically sick, because that meant one horrible possibility. Maybe Nathan targeted me from the beginning. Not love, selection. Then Margaret delivered the final punch. "Claire, your mother may have helped him." I genuinely thought I misheard her. What? Margaret looked uncomfortable for the first time all day. "Your mother has received several large transfers from accounts linked to Nathan over the last 2 years. My chest tightened violently. No. But deep down, I believed it immediately. because suddenly, years of conversations sounded different in my head.
Be patient with Nathan. You're emotionally difficult sometimes. A man can only tolerate so much. My mother always defended him. Always. Even when he humiliated me publicly. One Thanksgiving, Nathan joked that I was too unstable to manage finances. Everyone laughed, including my mother. I laughed too because humiliation becomes normal after enough years. Now I realize something horrifying. They weren't laughing at a joke. They were reinforcing a narrative. Margaret touched my hand gently. You need to leave the house immediately. I nodded automatically, but my brain only focused on one thing, Emma. What about my daughter? We'll handle custody. The certainty in her voice calmed me slightly. Then she added, but you cannot warn Nathan. That part terrified me.
Because if lawyers were telling me not to warn my own husband, how dangerous was this situation really? By the time I returned home that evening, I felt like a stranger inside my own life. Nathan sat at the kitchen island helping Emma with homework. Perfect husband. Perfect father. Monster. It's terrifying how those things can exist inside one person simultaneously. He smiled the second he saw me. There's my girl. I almost flinched hearing it. Then I noticed Lily's purse hanging beside the counter. Of course. Nathan followed my eyes calmly. Lily stopped by earlier. No shame. No guilt. Nothing. That confidence told me everything. He genuinely believed he controlled the situation. Then Emma smiled at me innocently. Aunt Lily says we might all go to the beach together this summer.
I looked at Nathan. He held my gaze steadily, like he was testing whether I'd explode. That's when I realized something else about manipulators. They provoke emotional reactions intentionally, because your reaction becomes evidence later. I forced a smile at Emma. That sounds fun, baby. Nathan looked surprised for half a second. He expected panic, crying, chaos. Instead, I walked upstairs calmly and started packing. Not obvious packing, strategic packing. Documents, passports, emergency cash, jewelry. Then I opened the safe hidden behind my closet wall. Nathan never knew it existed. Inside sat several legal binders and a flash drive my grandmother gave me years earlier. For emergencies only, she'd said. At the time, I rolled my eyes dramatically. Now my hands shook opening it. The drive contained private trust records, security contacts, emergency protocols, and one video file, recorded by my grandmother 6 months before her death. I clicked play immediately. Her face appeared on screen. Older, tired, but sharp as ever. Claire, she said calmly, if you're watching this, someone close to you has likely betrayed your trust. I started crying instantly, not because of the warning, because suddenly I missed her so badly I could barely breathe. She continued, your mother inherited my charm. You inherited my instincts. Never ignore them to make others comfortable. That sentence hit me like a knife, because that's exactly what I'd done for years, ignored myself, to protect everyone else's comfort. Then my grandmother said something that made my blood run cold. Your husband requested detailed trust explanations twice before your engagement. I froze. He believed I didn't notice. Oh my God. Nathan had been investigating my inheritance before proposing. The entire relationship suddenly felt fake from the start. Then my grandmother leaned closer toward the camera slightly. If you begin feeling confused constantly, emotionally unstable, or dependent on someone else's version of reality, leave immediately. My stomach dropped, because she described my marriage perfectly. Then she added one final sentence. Manipulators survive by making intelligent women distrust themselves. The video ended. I sat there shaking silently in my closet while 20 different memories rearranged themselves in my head. Nathan hiding my medication.
Nathan deleting emails. Nathan correcting conversations that never happened. None of it was accidental. Then my phone buzzed. Text from Nathan. "You okay up there?" I stared at the message. No response. Another text immediately followed. "Don't isolate yourself again." Again. Always implying previous instability, always building history. I suddenly realized Nathan narrated my personality constantly, not just to me, to everyone. Friends, neighbors, teachers, probably even Emma. That way, if I ever accused him of something, people would already doubt me automatically. God, that level of manipulation takes planning. Then I heard footsteps approaching the bedroom. I quickly shoved the flash drive into my pocket just before Nathan walked in. He smiled softly. "You disappeared." I shrugged. Headache. His eyes scanned the room subtly, checking things, monitoring. I noticed it for the first time now. Then he sat beside me carefully. "You know I love you, right?" There it was again. That sentence suddenly sounded rehearsed every time he said it. I looked at him, really looked at him. Handsome, calm, controlled. The exact kind of man people trust automatically. And suddenly I understood why victims of psychological abuse struggle so much to get believed. Because monsters don't always look monstrous. Sometimes they look like patient husbands bringing you tea. Nathan touched my knee gently. "I think you're under a lot of stress lately." I stayed silent. Then he lowered his voice. "Maybe we should temporarily transfer financial responsibilities to me." My heart stopped. There it was. Finally, the real objective. Money, control, inheritance. He wanted legal authority before my trust transfer finalized next month. I whispered carefully, "Why would we do that?" Nathan sighed like he was exhausted already. "Because you've been struggling mentally." Mentally, not emotionally, not stressed. Mentally. Escalation. I realized he was moving faster now, probably because he sensed me slipping away from his control. Then he said something that chilled me completely. "I spoke to Dr. Feldman today." I froze instantly. "You what?" Nathan kept his voice calm. "He agrees your recent behavior is concerning." Concerning. I felt genuine fear crawl up my spine, because suddenly, this wasn't just manipulation anymore. He was building professional documentation, medical documentation, without my knowledge. Then he smiled sadly. "I'm trying to protect our family." Family? I almost screamed. Instead, I whispered, "Get out." Nathan blinked slowly. "What?" "Get out of my room." For the first time in years, his mask slipped completely. Not anger. Something colder. Contempt. Actual contempt. Then it vanished just as fast. "Okay," he said quietly, and walked toward the door. But before leaving, he turned around and said, "Claire, be very careful what story you create in your head right now." Story. Not truth. Story. Then he left. I waited until his footsteps disappeared before locking the bedroom door. My hands shook while I called Margaret immediately. She answered on the first ring.
Before I could even speak, she said, "You need to leave tonight." My stomach dropped. "Why?" Long silence. Then, "Because we just received confirmation your husband attempted to access your daughter's trust fund this afternoon." I stopped breathing, and suddenly I understood. Nathan wasn't planning to leave me. He was planning to replace me completely. I left that night with one suitcase, my daughter, and the terrifying realization that my husband had probably been planning my replacement for years. Nathan was downstairs on a work call when I moved, or pretending to be. I didn't care anymore. Emma slept against my shoulder while I carried her quietly to the garage. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice. Every sound felt dangerous. Every shadow felt wrong. Because once you suspect someone may actually harm you, your nervous system changes permanently. I strapped Emma into the back seat and started the engine. Then my phone buzzed. Nathan. One text. Where are you going? Ice flooded my chest instantly. I looked around the garage. Camera. He was watching through the security cameras. Of course he was. Another text appeared. Claire, don't do something dramatic. Dramatic. Always that word. I drove away without answering. My heart pounded the entire drive to the private residence hotel Margaret arranged. At one red light, I genuinely thought Nathan's SUV was behind me. It wasn't. But fear makes every dark car look familiar. When we finally reached the hotel, 2 private security guards were already waiting downstairs. That scared me more than comforted me, because normal divorces don't involve private security. Emma woke up groggy while I carried her inside. Mommy, is Daddy coming? That question nearly broke me. I kissed her forehead and lied. Not tonight, baby. The second Emma fell asleep upstairs, I completely fell apart. Not elegant crying, not movie crying, the kind where your body physically hurts from holding too much fear for too long. Margaret arrived around midnight carrying folders and coffee. Listen carefully, she said immediately. Nathan filed an emergency psychological wellness concern 2 hours ago. I stared at her blankly. What does that mean? He's claiming you're emotionally unstable and acting irrationally. Of course he was, because if I looked unstable, then he looked believable.
Suddenly, every year of gaslighting made sense. He wasn't just controlling me emotionally. He was building a future case against me. Margaret opened one folder. Inside were screenshots from Nathan's messages to friends and neighbors. Claire's struggling lately. She forgets things. I'm worried about her mental state. My stomach twisted violently. He'd been laying groundwork for years, carefully, patiently. Then Margaret showed me something worse. School communication records. Nathan had emailed Emma's teacher last month expressing concern about my stress levels around parenting. I covered my mouth. Oh my God. Even my daughter's school. He was planting seeds everywhere. That level of manipulation is terrifying because it requires long-term planning.
Then Margaret handed me another file. Private investigator report. Apparently Nathan had gambling debts far larger than I realized. Over $2 million. Hidden loans, offshore transfers, secret accounts linked to Lily, and one name that appeared repeatedly. Victor Hale. The second I saw it, my blood ran cold. Victor Hale used to work with my grandfather decades ago before getting exposed for financial fraud. My grandfather destroyed him publicly. Margaret noticed my face immediately. You know that name? Yes. And suddenly the entire situation became much darker. Because Victor Hale didn't just hate my family, he obsessed over them. My grandfather used to call him the patient snake. Margaret leaned forward carefully. We believe Hale may be funding Nathan.
The room went silent. I whispered, why? Because once your trust transfers next month, Your husband gains indirect marital access to several controlling assets. Oh my God. Nathan didn't just marry me for comfort. I was an investment. A long-term investment. Then another horrible realization hit me. The brake lines. Margaret nodded slowly. We had your vehicle examined independently. I already knew the answer before she spoke. Intentional tampering. I physically stopped breathing. Because hearing it officially made it real in a way suspicion never could. Someone deliberately damaged my brakes, and Emma had been in that car earlier that week. I suddenly felt nauseous. Margaret's voice softened slightly. Claire, you need to understand something. I looked at her. This is no longer simply marital betrayal. No, it wasn't. It was strategy, money, control, maybe attempted murder. Then my phone rang. Nathan, again. Margaret motioned for silence. I answered carefully. Nathan sounded calm, too calm. Emma's scared, he said softly. My stomach twisted instantly. She's asleep. Long pause. Then, you took my daughter without discussing it. My daughter. Not our daughter. My daughter. I suddenly heard the shift clearly. Control slipping makes manipulators possessive. I needed space. Nathan sighed dramatically. Claire, everyone's worried about you. Everyone. Isolation tactic. Make the victim feel outnumbered. Then his voice lowered. You're making very emotional decisions right now. There it was again. Emotional. Unstable. I suddenly realized Nathan repeated those words so often, they'd become part of my identity. Not anymore, I whispered. You cheated on me with my sister for 2 years. Silence. Then he quietly said something that chilled me completely. You don't sound well. I almost laughed out loud. That level of manipulation felt insane once you finally saw it clearly. Then Nathan added, if you continue behaving irrationally, this could become complicated legally. Threat. Direct threat. Margaret immediately took notes while I kept listening. Nathan continued softly, I'm trying to protect you from embarrassing yourself publicly. Publicly. Always image management. Always narrative control. Then his voice changed slightly, more irritated. Come home tonight and we can handle this privately. Handle this. Like I was becoming a problem to manage. I finally asked the question destroying my brain for days. Did you sabotage my car? Silence. Complete silence. Not outrage, not confusion. Silence. That silence answered everything. Then Nathan laughed quietly. A cold little laugh I'd never heard before. See, he whispered. This is exactly why people think you're unstable. My entire body turned cold, because suddenly, I understood how dangerous he truly was. Not physically explosive, psychologically surgical. The kind of person who makes reality itself feel slippery. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. If you keep pushing this narrative, Claire, people are going to start asking whether you're safe around Emma. I nearly dropped the phone. There it was, the real weapon, custody. He was going to use years of manipulation to take my daughter, too. Margaret took the phone gently from my shaking hand and ended the call immediately. The room stayed silent afterward. Then she looked directly at me and said, You need to stop thinking of this man as your husband. I stared at her. He's positioning against you now. Not emotionally, strategically. That distinction mattered. Then one of the security consultants entered the suite quickly. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "there's someone downstairs asking for your room number." My blood froze instantly. "Who?" The guard hesitated. Then, "Your half-sister." Of course. Of course Lily came too, because humiliating me privately apparently wasn't enough anymore. Margaret immediately stood. "Do not go downstairs." But before anyone could stop me, my phone buzzed again. Photo message from Lily. A selfie. Inside my bedroom. Wearing my silk robe. Lying against my pillows beside Nathan. Caption. "You always leave eventually." I stared at the screen while something inside me finally broke completely. Not sadness. Not fear. Mercy. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I stopped wanting explanations. I wanted revenge. The next morning, I stopped acting like a victim. That was the beginning of the end for Nathan. Because manipulators depend on emotional chaos, crying, begging, explaining yourself. The second you become calm, they panic. And Nathan started panicking fast. By 7 a.m., he'd called me 14 times, left 9 voicemails, sent 23 texts. Not one apology. Not one. Everything was about control. "Please stop overreacting. You're scaring people. We need to manage this privately." Manage, manage, manage. Like I was a PR disaster instead of his wife. Margaret helped me file emergency legal protections before noon, temporary financial freezes, custody protections, digital forensic investigations, and most importantly, an official inquiry into the brake tampering. The second Nathan learned about the investigation, everything changed. His calm act cracked. He started texting non-stop. "You're destroying our family. You're humiliating Emma. You're letting paranoid delusions ruin your life." Delusions. Funny word coming from a man sleeping with my half-sister while secretly trying to access my inheritance. Then Lily made the mistake that destroyed both of them. She posted too early. That's genuinely what ended them. Around 2 p.m., one of my friends sent me a screenshot from Lily's private Instagram story. She forgot mutual friends could still see it. The photo showed champagne glasses inside my beach house. My beach house. And Nathan's arm around her waist. Caption: "Finally, no more secrets." I actually laughed when I saw it. Not because it was funny, because narcissistic people always expose themselves eventually. They get addicted to the fantasy too quickly. Margaret immediately smiled for the first time all week. "Good," she said. "Very good." Because legally, that photo mattered. Timing mattered. While Nathan publicly claimed I was unstable and paranoid, his mistress posted romantic photos inside marital property. Perfect. Then things escalated even faster. At 5 p.m., Daniel, the private investigator Margaret hired, arrived with a folder so thick my stomach dropped instantly. "We recovered deleted financial records," he said. Nathan's secret debts were worse than anyone thought. Nearly $4 million. Gambling, bad investments, private loans, and multiple cash transfers from Victor Hale's shell companies. Then Daniel handed me one final document. A draft email Nathan never sent. Addressed to a trustee connected to my inheritance. I started shaking halfway through reading it. Nathan described me as emotionally fragile, financially irresponsible, and increasingly detached from reality. He was preparing to challenge my competency. My own husband planned to convince people I was mentally unfit right before my trust transferred. Suddenly, I understood the full plan. Gaslight me. document emotional reactions, cheat publicly enough to destabilize me, then paint me as mentally unstable during the inheritance transition. And if that failed, the break lines. I sat there staring at the papers while rage slowly replaced fear completely. Nathan didn't just betray me. He studied me, used my love against me strategically for years. Then Daniel quietly added, "There's more." Of course there was. "There's evidence your mother knew about the affair." That one hurt more than anything else somehow, even more than Lily. Because mothers are supposed to protect you from predators. Mine apparently introduced one into my life. Daniel showed me restaurant photos. My mother having dinner with Nathan and Lily repeatedly over the last year. Laughing, smiling, shopping together. I felt sick. Then came the final knife, audio recordings. My mother's voice. "Claire's always been weak emotionally. You just have to stay calm when she spirals." Nathan laughing softly. Lily saying, "She'll never leave. She needs people too much." I turned the recording off immediately. I couldn't take another second. For years, they all sat at my table pretending to love me, while discussing my psychological destruction behind my back. That level of betrayal changes you permanently. Then my phone rang. Nathan again. This time I answered. Not because I missed him, because I wanted to hear his voice, now that I finally understood him clearly.
He sounded exhausted, angry underneath the calmness. "Claire, what are you doing?" I leaned back slowly. "Protecting myself." Long silence, then, "You're making a huge mistake." "No," I whispered. "Marrying you was the mistake." For the first time ever, Nathan lost control completely. "You think anyone's going to believe this insane story?" There it was. Not denial, confidence. Because he truly believed years of manipulation made him untouchable. Then he snapped. "You're unstable, Claire. You always have been." I closed my eyes, because suddenly I heard my mother's voice too. Weak, emotional, dramatic. The same language, the same strategy. Nathan didn't invent it. He learned it from her. Then he made one catastrophic mistake.
He yelled, "If you just signed the damn transfer papers already, none of this would have happened." Silence. Pure silence. Because the second those words left his mouth, he realized what he admitted. I slowly whispered, "So that's what this was really about." Nathan immediately backtracked. "You know what I meant." "No," I said quietly. "I finally know exactly what you meant." Then I hung up. And something strange happened afterward. I stopped loving him instantly. Not gradually, instantly. Like my brain finally caught up with reality. That night, Margaret arranged the final move. Public exposure. Because wealthy, manipulative people survive through secrecy. So we destroyed secrecy. 3 days later, Nathan walked into what he believed was an emergency trust meeting regarding my mental instability. Instead, he walked into a conference room containing attorneys, forensic accountants, trust executives, investigators, and me. Nathan stopped walking immediately. I'll never forget his face. For the first time since I met him, he looked afraid. Real fear. Not fake concern, not controlled irritation. Fear. Lily arrived 5 minutes later and nearly fainted when she saw the room. Then Margaret started presenting evidence. The affair, the hidden transfers, the gambling debt, the insurance policy, the vehicle tampering investigation. Every lie collapsed, one after another. Nathan tried interrupting constantly, tried redirecting, tried attacking my mental health again, until Margaret played the audio recording. If she signs the trust transfer, she becomes unnecessary.
Silence filled the entire room. Nathan's face lost color instantly. Lily started crying, actual tears this time, not manipulative tears, panic tears. Then the final blow landed. Federal investigators entered the room. Turns out Victor Hale was already under investigation for financial crimes. Nathan's transfers connected him directly. Watching security escort my husband out of that room felt surreal, not satisfying immediately, just surreal. Because 6 days earlier I was apologizing for being too emotional. Now the man who destroyed my sanity was being investigated for fraud and possible conspiracy. Lily tried speaking to me before leaving. I'll never forget what she said. "You ruined all our lives." I looked directly at her and replied, "No, you just expected me to stay weak forever."
That was the last thing I ever said to her. 6 months later, Nathan lost nearly everything. His financial licenses, his reputation, most of his remaining assets. Lily disappeared from social media completely after the investigation became public. My mother still sends me messages sometimes pretending she didn't know how bad things were. I never answer. And me? I finally understand something now. The most dangerous thing manipulators ever steal from you isn't money. It's your trust in yourself. Once they control that, they control your reality. But the second you trust your instincts again, their entire power collapses.